I'm going to show you how to take out the battery on a 2013 Triumph America. A couple of things you will need to do this actually. You'll need a Torx bit socket set because some of the screws on the battery cover removals will require you to use a Torx bit. So I have a Torx bit right here. And then you would also need a size 10 socket. That's for the battery terminals themselves. So I'm going to start actually taking this off. So some of these areas sometimes are kind of hard. So I'm going to take this little cover off first. And there's just one socket down here that I need to remove. So I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to loosen that. Sometimes once you loosen it, I think it's sometimes easier to just use your hand to kind of loosen this. Make sure when you take these off, before you take them off, I would recommend you take pictures, so just in case it's slightly different from what I'm showing you here, you at least have a point of reference, so when you need to put it back together, you don't get confused. It's happened to me so many times I haven't taken pictures. So you pull that, you can kind of pull that off. So this piece has one screw. I usually put the screw in place here and I put it aside so I know which screw goes where. And then there are two screws on this little cover here. You have to remove this piece too, so you can remove this little piece above. This is the battery box. So before we can get to that, you got to remove two more screws here and then you can pull this off. So let's do that. Okay, I'm taking off. Yeah, this is probably one of the first motorcycles I've had where I've had to use Torx bits for the screws on the battery cover. Most of the other motorcycles I've ever owned. I haven't owned a Harley, the Triumph. This is my first Triumph. I have owned a BMW. I've had a Honda, I've had a Yamaha, so none of those bikes really needed Torx to get to the battery. It's probably a first. So this is the other screw you need to remove. And you also need to be careful when you remove these screws. This screw has a tendency to fall into this area right here, and so it may be a good thing to put your hands or have something to catch the screw, because I've lost it in there once and it sometimes is a pain to get to if it drops down in there. So it's good to put your hands there when it falls out. So now I can pull this off. This is one piece, and again I put the screws right on the piece so I know where it's supposed to go. Again, I do this for this particular one. And then I put it aside. Now, let me just bring up this light. So now you can see there's, on the battery cover, you need to remove this to get at the battery. Now, one thing I don't like about this battery is that the negative terminal is on the back. You can kind of see it there. The positive terminal again is on the back. So unless you remove this and take this strap out, you have to pull back the battery to be able to get to the terminals in the back. So I'm going to loosen this. And always be careful when you work around the battery. You don't want to short the negative terminal to the positive terminal with your tools, accidentally drop it between the two, or touch this and touch that at the same time. You just don't want to do that. You will kill the battery. You'll probably get a minor shock. So those are the things you need to watch out for when you work with 12-volt batteries. So I'm taking this. Now the strap just pops out. There's a little hook here on the bottom. This hook actually goes in here and hooks into here and then comes up this way. You have to make sure it clears the wires before you tighten it, but there's a little hook down here, and you pull it off, take it off the hook and take it off. Again, I would put the screw in here so you don't lose it. Then you can pull this little piece out. This piece is secured by the little strap. You pull this piece out, and now you can pull out the battery. And I'm going to pull the battery out. And it's kind of a little... Okay, one of the things I would definitely recommend before you do that is to take the negative terminal off. So loosen the negative terminal. And the reason you want to do that is mainly due to the fact that if when pulling out the battery, you don't want to short this bike, the 2013 Triumph, actually does have power going into the computer, and it runs probably the clock in there, so there's some power being consumed every time you hook up the battery. So if you're not going to use this for a long time, also keep in mind there's two sets of wires. There's a main negative terminal, and there's also this little black ended terminal. You need to put both of those together to mount it on the negative side. On the positive side, you have the same thing, which I'll show you shortly. But I would take this off, move these wires out of the way. So let me show you, if you have trouble taking this out, how I would do it. I would use a screwdriver. I'm using a little chisel bit here. I would stick the end right down here and kind of put it right under the battery, kind of lift it up, and then kind of pry it up slowly so you can pull it out. Now you can pull this out and remove this terminal. I want to have the ability to charge the battery at any time, so I'm going to see if I can hook this up. On my battery tender, I have a little, I'm going to hook this up to the battery and put it aside, so anytime I need to charge the battery, I can actually do it without having to pull the battery from the bike, which is always a good thing to have, good thing to use. So I'm going to try and hook these up to the negative and positive sides, and then tuck this out of the way in some manner. So anytime I come and then have these terminals, I can just hook it up to this to charge the battery up while it's on the bike. That was the main reason why I took this. I'm going to take this battery apart. So I'm going to have to take this terminal off. Okay, that just dropped off. Okay. Now I have the lead. Now I have three terminals that need to go in there. I have this little, so on the positive side there's not only the main terminal that's in there, I'll kind of show it to you. There's a terminal that's here. You got to hook up this red terminal, and then I'm going to add one more terminal for the charger, for me to hook up the charger on this location. So that'll be three terminals on top of the battery that I need to hook up. You would have to tighten this down, because once you push this thing in, you wouldn't be able to get access to this bolt. So I'm going to tighten this down. Just make sure the leads, there's like, I've got to try and show you this. There's one lead here that was originally with the motorcycle. This is my charging lead that I put on here, and then there's the main lead that's connected to this little piece here. There's three of them in there. You want to make sure they're all connected right. They're routed right so they don't rub against anything. And I'm going to tighten this down, and once I do that, I'm going to try and cover it with this red lead, or red cover, plastic insulator cover. And I'm going to have to do the same thing on the other side now. I have to push this in some, and then I have three leads here. I have one with the black end that's off the motorcycle. I have the main terminal for the negative here, and then they have a charger terminal here. which I'm also going to have to hook up. So I'm going to have to hook up all three together. Always make sure when you tighten these wires, you want to be very careful, because if you tighten them incorrectly, they're going to rub or stress out and break. You don't want any stresses. You don't want to tighten them down in the wrong position. Tighten that, and now I can push it in. Okay, got it to fit. It's kind of difficult to push this in once, to pull it out and push it in. I think you can pry it, like I said before, pry it right here to pull it out. And now I got to figure out what to do with this extra stuff. I might have to wire tie it or something and put it off to the side, but I'm gonna try and hook everything up first. So one of the first things you need to do is you need to put this cover back on. Looks like the extra wires I put in there are probably causing some issues, so I may have to move this. Above the cover here and see if that would help. I think that might be the way I do it. So I'm gonna have to bring these wires above. Hope this won't be stressing the wires here. That would be a problem. Again, using the Torx. Okay, so that's good. Next thing I do, I have to put this cover back on. So this cover kind of goes like this. And you see these two locations here. There's one here, there's one here, that you need to put this onto. The other thing I need to point out, there's a little snap fit thing here that needs to go into this hole. The snap fit thing. So once you can push it in the hole, you should be okay. Let me see if I can move the wires to hide it behind. Let me see if I can move them. Now I can't even access the bolt. Okay. No, I can. Okay, loosen that a little bit. I'm going to try and put those wires right in there. So that should kind of tuck it out of the way. And then tighten up the negatives. Okay, you want to keep the wires pushed away from the fastener, from the screw right here, and then tighten it down, because you don't want the wires actually resting on the screw. Now I'm going to try and snap this in place. There we go. I think it's snapped in place. I'm going to put these screws back in. So there's one screw here. There's another screw right there on the bottom here. And this is the one you got to be careful about, because it's so easy to drop this. So you can kind of see it right there. I'm kind of pointing to it. That's what you need to put the screw in through. Sometimes you have to do it by feel. We have another piece here that goes, this is the final piece. And for this one, it's kind of hard to see, but See this little end here? There's a little slot on the here that you need to fit into that little protrusion on the plastic. You need to kind of hook it over. If you don't hook it over, this thing will come flying off. So it's retained. You see that, how it's swinging up and down? So right now I got it hooked right on that. And then you just attach another screw here to the hole. So last but not least, I got this piece to attach. Like I said, I hooked it over, and I have one more screw to put right at the base here. And then you tighten it down too. And that basically covers our installing and taking off the battery and reinstalling it. So now I have the battery charger actually hooked up. You can see the blinking light here. This is the battery, what's called a battery tender. And the reason I put the extra cord here, you can kind of see, I hooked up the line coming from the battery to the battery tender. You can kind of see it going to the battery charger. And so that was the whole idea behind this. And with this, I don't have to ever take out the battery anytime I want to charge it. I can do it right on the bike, which is the whole idea of doing this.